I arrived at IIT Kanpur from Ranikhet in Almora district by train to Lucknow and then took a bus from Lucknow to Kanpur and then waited for the IIT bus to pick us up from Rawatpur to bring us to the campus. Arriving at the campus, it was pretty much open space. There were hardly any grown trees at that time. I think the administration had just started planting lots of small trees, uh, but vegetation was very limited. Um, and now, when I went a few years back, I mean, the whole campus looks very, very different. The hostels were relatively new because, I joined there in 1964, so the hostels were fairly new. Uh, the food at IIT Kanpur was pretty decent, even though we may have complained, but the mess was pretty decent mess. Uh, we used to have to walk across the campus to go to lecture halls, and L7 was the biggest lecture hall at that time, and our labs were scattered all over the place. Uh, as I said, the food was good, but we always used to look forward to something different. And if you wanted to have something different, there was no restaurant on the campus. You had to take the bus, which had a limited service from the campus to Rawatpur. And then from Rawatpur, you will take a rickshaw to go to Birana Road or someplace to eat some chaat or something else. So I think in our second or third year, the person who was running the mess uh, decided to leave the contract, and he opened a restaurant right outside the gate. And he was from South India, so he used to serve dosas. And I very much remember borrowing bicycle from somebody in the mess, having a friend of mine on the handle, one on the bar, one on the back. So four of us with me, as on the cycle, just riding all the way outside the gate to go and try a dosa. So the life was way different, but it was exciting because the professors were absolutely outstanding. There was quite a bit of activity, and but the campus was still like very much away from the rest of the city, and very limited amenities were available locally on the campus. I reflect back on my life. I come from a fairly poor family. Um, when I was growing up, we had very limited means. Sabji and roti was lunch, and dal and roti were dinner. Uh, so when I reflect back, uh, God has been very kind to me. I worked hard, but there have been places and people who have made a remarkable difference in my life. And I am a strong believer that if I am blessed to be in a position where I am today, I must make sure that I am doing everything I can to give back to the people, to the institutions that have made a difference in my life. So starting from my high school days, I studied in Ranikhet. I did my high school and intermediate from there. And a Joshi family uh, really took me as a part of their family, and spent a lot of time educating me. The father in the Joshi family lost his eyesight in his 40s, but he still used to teach me math. And I'll sit down and he'll say, Jagjeet, open page 247, question number 4. I mean, he had the whole math book in his head. His older son taught me English. His younger son taught me Hindi. And those people transformed my life. They took me as a student who didn't care to somebody who wanted to study hard, be successful, and do well. And that's the reason I think I succeeded in joint entrance exam for IIT. And the 5 years that I spent at IIT Kanpur probably the most defining 5 years of my life. Um, I think we had a significant number of professors who were visiting professors from US universities. There were professors who were educated in the US. I think IIT Kanpur really, really provided me a platform to establish my future success. And that's when I applied and came to University of Washington. So it's very important for me to consider that I need to give back. So in Vanikhet, I think my wife and I have spent significant amount of money renovating our high school. My high school, we have put windows, water, drainage system, so on. In IIT Kanpur, I just can't tell you how much I owe my success to the professors, to the institution at Kanpur. So right from the start, we started making smaller contributions early in my career. And then when I achieved a position of responsibility, I convinced Chevron to not only establish a chair in chemical engineering, but I invited Hindustan Petroleum chairman, who was my classmate actually at that time. Mahesh Bihari Lal was the chairman of HPCL. Mahesh and I and Grace Chemical representatives formed a collaboration to fund research at IIT Kanpur. So all these three companies gave money, and we started sponsoring research in the Department of Chemical Engineering on catalysis and other process improvements, including process intensification. So that was the first major effort that we made at IIT Kanpur. As I became more successful and felt that I need to do more, we established a chair in chemical engineering in the name of my parents. It is known as Mr. and Mrs. Gyan Singh Bindra Chair. Besides that, I established a professorship in the name of my professor, Dr. A. Vasudev, who was in chemical engineering at that time at IIT Kanpur, who was my mentor, who was an outstanding leader. He currently lives in San Jose, California. I gave a faculty fellowship in his name, which is still ongoing. And now I think we have reached a point where we think we need to do more. So I have just signed an agreement with IIT Kanpur that unit operations lab in the chemical engineering department, which needs significant upgrade, will be funded by contributions from my wife and myself, as well as Kanpur, so as well as the institution. And they will be starting that project very soon. So I think it is important for all of us to think about giving back. As I said, I came to the University of Washington to do a master's in chemical engineering, and I owe a lot to University of Washington as well. So we have done a number of things at University of Washington also to support. We have a Bindra scholarship, a Bindra fellowship, a Bindra professorship, and we have a lab in chemical engineering at University of Washington, which is known as Bindra Innovation Lab. These are just some examples of what we have done, but that doesn't mean that we have done enough. I mean, there is a lot that needs to be done to help the next generation of students that are coming through IIT Kanpur, that are coming through University of Washington. And if we rely solely on the finances that IIT Kanpur receives from the government, I think we will not have world-class facilities, we will not have world-class laboratories, and we will not have world-class education. So I urge all of us, and I consider this to be, in Sanskrit they say Guru Dakshina. So this is a part of our way of giving back to the institutions that have made a difference in our life. Yes, when I decided to retire in 2009, I had um, three key objectives. The first one was to stay healthy. So my first challenge was to do enough exercise, do enough walking, whatever I can do to stay healthy. The second goal was to have more time to spend with my family. But my third objective was also very important. I wanted to make sure that I remain intellectually challenged. I did not want to just come home and vegetate. So I decided that I need to continue to serve in the business arena in some fashion. And I joined board of directors of several companies. But then very soon I realized in about 3-4 years that I haven't given up anything. I'm still keeping myself busy. I'm traveling to London, I'm traveling to Australia, I'm traveling to Switzerland. And it started taking toll on my ability to spend time with the family and to take care of my health. So I started shedding some of my responsibilities. During this time, I also said I need to do something more to support IIT Kanpur, and I took over as the chairman of IITK Kanpur Foundation in the US and worked pretty hard with the director, the faculty, to help raise funds, look at the future direction of IIT Kanpur, and I served in that capacity for 2 years. One thing I can say is that the educational foundation that you are receiving at IIT Kanpur is going to serve you very well in the long term. This is the time when you need to make sure that you are dedicating yourself to learning, taking advantage of every opportunity that is offered to you at IIT Kanpur. But whatever you do, there are certain things that are going to be very important as you move on to the next phase of your life after leaving IIT Kanpur. I always believe that you must treat every person with dignity and respect. That is fundamental to a successful leaders. I am a strong believer, whether you are a chief executive of the company, a chairman, or a clerk, or an operator, or a mechanic, you're all employees of the company. And you all deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And that is a value that must be kept in mind. Most of all, you must dream big. Don't let anybody tell you that you cannot achieve a certain level, or you cannot, whether it's in academia, in research, or in business. Don't let anybody hold you back. You must dream big. But dreaming big doesn't mean just dream. You need to work hard. You need to create a plan. How are you going to get to the point of achieving that dream? I think there will be times when you'll be disappointed. There'll be challenges. There'll be times when you will fail. But that should give you an opportunity to accept every one of those failures as a challenge to do better going forward. Focus on what you can learn from the failure that occurred.